The other dimension that we have to consider is the economic dimension. And the point here is external vulnerability. People were saying that we were in a post-prohibition period. So the problem of trade was not present anymore. But if you see here the appreciation, the real appreciation of the currencies in the region, you can see there is a very, very big appreciation of the currencies. And well, and this is a problem. This is a problem, and it's appearing like right now, because during the first decade of the 2000, we had surplus of current account numbers, but right now this black line is the line of the current account balance, and you can see we're going through increasing current accounts balance. So the external vulnerability is present, is latent in most of the countries because there are international reserves, but it is present because if the international reserves start to diminish, this will be may create a currency crisis. Well, this appreciation problem is leading to and is related, of course, to the price of the commodities. And you can see here that after a long period that raw material was decreasing in the composition of the exports of the region, it has started to increase after this period of good prices of natural resources, of commodities. And also natural resource-based manufacturers are growing too. This is not yet a reprimarization of the productive structure, but it's clearly a reprimarization of exports of the region. And for instance, the sectors that are exporting commodities have the biggest profits, and so the incentives to invest are bigger here too. So it will change the production structure. Well, the high concentration of exports in few companies and few products, that's another characteristics. You can see here in Venezuela, for instance, 98% of the exports are related to only one company. Certainly it's PDVSA, and Chile 78 is Codelco, and so on. So it's very, very concentrated. The small and medium enterprises, there are a lot of companies, but the value, the participation in value of the exports are not so big. And I went to the end of the presentation. Well, let's go to the labor and social gaps that are related to this social institutional dimension. But here it is. Weakness of the state. Well, first of all, the weakness of the state as an institutional problem is that the confidence in the state is very low. So the citizens are not confident in the capacity of the state to handle the problems of the societies in the region. And we can see, I'm really sorry, but I jumped so many things here that I will have to come back. state. So first of all, when we're talking about the weakness of the state, there's the institutional dimension. You can see that the tax burden in the region is about 19%. So it's very, very low if you compare to the other regions, and mainly to OECD, that is near 35%. It's very important because it's necessary to have the resources to make social policy. Otherwise, it's quite difficult to finance it. This is the data about this lack of confidence in the state. You can see it's over 50% in most of the countries of the region. Uruguay, it's lower, it's about 35, but most of the countries are over 50. We also consider the relations of this different dimensions. So if you relate structural heterogeneity to external vulnerability, the result will be an economic periphery, because you don't have the productivity and also don't have the mix of the products that allow the countries to participate in very dynamic markets, and also a latent external vulnerability. The result is an economic periphery. So you can see here that while Asia is growing a lot, its importance in the growth of the world, Latin America is also having a rise, but it's not so big, not so considerable. The net inflows of foreign direct investment are growing too, but if you compare to Asia, it's a lot bigger in Asia. The green one is Latin America. It's growing, but it could grow a lot more. This is the most important one. This is the elasticity, income elasticity of imports, the relation of the income elasticity of imports and income elasticity of export. It means it's bigger, the income elasticities of imports in the region. It means that when the income of the region is growing, the rate of imports will grow even faster. So the current account balances tend to disequilibrate by the time. So this is the most important one, and this is why we suggest to the countries to start structural change policies, because otherwise you can see the comparison here to the Republic of Korea. That is the blue line. The blue line is more than 2 times the relation of the ratio of the income elasticity of exports to the income elasticity of imports. So they have the capacity to provide the goods necessary when their economy are growing, and also has the capacity to participate in international dynamic economies and markets. Well, this is our capacity to develop patent applications. So as you can see, China was 1% in 1990. Now they're 27.8. Latin America was 1.9 in 1990. It rose to 3.5, and now it decreased to 2.5. So it's another important figure about this issue of economic periphery. Well, social periphery is the relation of structural heterogeneity and weakness of the state. Structural heterogeneity because of this problem of to spill over the productivity gains from the high productivity sectors to the low productivity sectors, and the capacity of the state to compensate this So we already saw that the tax burden is low, so they don't have the resources to treat this problem, to correct this problem. And we can see that in OECD countries, this is done. You can see here, the red one will be the Gini index before taxes and transfers, like of course the basic income policies. And after taxes and transfers, the yellow one is how, in percentage, how this Gini index reduced in the OECD countries and how this reduced in Latin America. Well, here is the big issue. So we can see here that if this transfer policies are very important because they help to reduce the Gini index, but they don't have the same effectiveness because the structure of the taxes is regressive. So the transfer policies in the region need to compensate this impact of the regressive taxes structure and also to compensate the market distortions of distribution. So it's the effectiveness is reduced. So it's important not only to make this social policies of income transfers, but also to address structural problems like this one, that is the tax structure of the region. In this graphic, we can see that the countries that have high productivity also have the capacity to maintain high social spending as percentage of the GDP, like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Ireland, the United States, Australia, and Taiwan. And the Latin American region is down here with both problems of low social spending as percentage of the GDP, but also low productivity. Some countries started to migrate to the high social spending as percentage of the GDP, as Uruguay, Argentina, and Brazil. But the problem of productivity still handles. It's okay. Political periphery. Well, here it's important because you can see if the region have weakness of the state and external vulnerability, the political functional distribution. So you can see it's getting worse in the region. And Gini, when you consider personal distribution, it's getting better. So this is the problem. But there, we also have the limits because we don't have a way to continue this process of diminishing the Gini. So let's see what we are proposing. Well, here it is. All these dimensions that I presented, the structural heterogeneity, external vulnerability, and the weakness of the state are medium and long-term issues. The policies that needs to be of long-term mainly. And we think to address it, compacts are necessary because you need to mobilize important political power to get this continuing in the time. So we need this fiscal compact just to endow the state with the resources needed to make the policies. We need this pact for investment industrial policy to enable the economy to raise investments and productivity mainly. This social and labor market pact, because most of this inequality is reproduced within the labor market. 50% of the occupations in the region are informal, so this is very important. So compact for social welfare and public services. The region is progressing in this policies, but it's necessary to continue in this long-term policy. So that's why we're suggesting that compacts. Compacts for environmental sustainability, because growth in the region means contamination. Compacts for natural resource governance, just to appropriate part of the rents of this sector to finance this structural changes and social policies. And a compact about this post-2015 agreement that we'll have in September of 2015. This would be a regional compact. Well, so this is the idea. The problem is that we consider the region is in a crossroad because it accomplished to reduce poverty, accomplished to better this inequality indicators, but right now the region is growing less after the 2007-2008 crisis. So it needs to a better growth rate to address these issues. It also accomplished to increase the expenditures in social policies, but all these consider that productivity is low, considering that there is a latent external vulnerability and that the state, that it should be the main coordinator of this policies is weak. We think that it's necessary to make a campaign for this compact and try to make a medium and long-term development program for the region. So this is the main issues that we have in our document. Thank you very much for your attention.